Christine McDaniel here with the Health and Happiness Hacks Wellness Show, weekly show, and I'm so excited to have Sean Bartlett here today. Yay!
Yes!
High five. And you got a bow tie. I love it.
Thanks so much.
I was like, when you showed up, I'm like, this is so perfect. He is has a wealth of knowledge on so many topics. That's what I was telling him. I'm like, it's going to be so hard to narrow it down, but we're just going to have this conversation and definitely provide as much value to you guys as we possibly can. And so, yeah, I won't take any more time. I'll go ahead and let Sean introduce himself and what he's all about.
Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. So I'm Sean. I moved to San Diego a couple years ago for my job, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about later, at the Brain Treatment Center. So let's get into it.
Cool. And you're from Detroit? I know we have
Detroit. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the suburbs of Detroit. Yeah,
nice.
Don't be too scared.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead and explain where you're working at now. I think that would be helpful. Yeah. And some of the stuff you guys do, the technology, just the basics.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I work at a place called the Brain Treatment Center. It's pretty self-explanatory. We treat brains. We treat a really wide variety of patients. So anywhere from an autistic child to a veteran with PTSD, and anything in between, anxiety, depression, focus, concentration, things like that. So really, pretty much anything that has to do with the brain, we treat. We give it a try. So it's a therapy that's been around for a long time, but this company has sort of revolutionized it by making it more unique. So it's a pretty progressive approach to brain health, and it's really effective. So.
And essentially they're using magnets on the brain.
That's right, yeah. So basically what we do is we take an EEG, which is an electroencephalogram, and we record the electrical activity of the brain. And then what we do is we take what we find from that EEG, we determine the frequency of the brain, and we determine what part of the brain may not be synchronized with the rest of the brain. And then we give your brain what it needs. We basically treat your brain with, using a magnet, like you said, magnetic resonance therapy. So it's actually MERT, magnetic EEG resonance therapy. So basically we have this magnet, it's about this size, and I'll put it on your head right here, and it will click a bunch of times really fast. And what that clicking is doing is it's turning a magnetic field on and off very quickly. So every neuron within that field is being forced to fire. It's sort of nudging the neurons. So we get a global effect, throughout the brain using this magnet. So.
And with the autism, what it essentially, because you've seen firsthand, it helped tremendously.
Definitely,
with different.
Yeah, I see a lot of autistic kids come through, and I've treated a lot of them personally.
And then, so what are, as far as what causes autism? I know there's so many different theories, and what's the very basic?
That's probably a 30-minute show in its own.
Okay. Is it really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm sure there are so many conflicting schools of thought on that. I couldn't even comment. There's too many to name. But a lot of families that come in, from what they tell me, because I don't have any autistic kids myself, but from what they tell me, one of the things that helps tremendously is clean eating. Organic, non-GMO, no dyes or preservatives, anything like that. A lot of times gluten-free, not all the time, but sometimes gluten-free. Going that route will help in behavior and mood in the autistic child drastically. So that's a really big thing, and I know for a lot of like myself too, that helps me. Improves my mood for sure.
No, for sure. And then what are some of your passions? Because you're working at the Brain Treatment Center, but I know you have a lot of other hobbies and a lot of things you dive into.
Definitely.
Just in regards to biohacking and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, well, as you may know, I used to do magic a little bit.
You still do? So it's like, I wonder if he'll do one on the show.
Maybe we can work something out. Yeah, we'll do a cut. So that was a long time ago. Let's see. As of about 2 years ago, I started diving into binaural beats. So that's still one of my passions. I really love doing that. I love making them. I love sending them out to people and seeing what they think about them, and it's a lot of fun.
Cool. And for those who don't know, which a lot of people do not know what those are, definitely break it down.
Definitely. So a binaural beat is basically what it is. If you have one frequency, let's just say 100 hertz playing in your left ear, and you have another frequency that's slightly different, let's say 110 hertz playing in the right ear, what you'll have is you have 100 here, 110 here. your brain creates an auditory illusion of a third tone that's pulsing. And it's the difference between the two. So in this case, 100 here and 110 here would be a 10 hertz pulse. And so your brain is kind of an idiot in that it sort of just listens to whatever is yelling the loudest at it. You know, one of the reasons they say that strobe lights, you need to be careful around them because they could cause seizures, is because the seizure frequency in the brain is about 3.5 hertz, somewhere in that range. So if you have a strobe light that is emitting light at 3.5 hertz for long enough, it will induce a seizure. So same thing with binaural beats, except we're obviously not inducing seizures.
Okay,
we're
good.
doing we're using it for more positive things. It will induce a brainwave. So whatever frequency you have it at, it will induce that brainwave. So it will essentially force your brain to entrain to the sound. Yeah.
And then did you want to go over the 4? I know we don't have a dry erase board. Maybe we need one on the
maybe
show.
we do.
The 4 different brain waves that you covered.
Definitely, yeah. There's probably a couple more I'm missing here, but there's delta, which is the slowest, and a lot of people have maybe heard about these, but don't really know that much about it. So the delta wave is the slowest. That's when you're in deep sleep. It's really restorative sleep. There's theta wave. That's the next one up. That one is sort of in a daydream or in a trance state, or in the first couple stages of sleep. And then there's alpha wave. The alpha wave I like to think of sort of as like the idle of an engine. That's so if your brain is the engine, that's sort of your idle. That's the wave that we specifically target at the Brain Treatment Center as well. And then on top of that, you have the beta wave. So the beta wave is problem solving, critical thinking, things like that. So when you're awake, right now we're in a beta wave because we're talking, we're conversing, and we're wide awake. So. And
then which one for the state of flow, the one that athletes they perform the best in, when you just get in that?
Yeah, a lot of times I know what you mean. So when athletes say they're in the zone, that typically they're in an alpha wave. So they're able, through training, they're able to hold themselves in an alpha wave. So this is really important because these guys are really high performers, and obviously it does them well. So
Is there any tips or tricks that you've seen or heard of to try to extend the time in
to get into it, or
to get into it and to stay in the alpha state?
Meditation is key. It's
okay.
not what a lot of people want to hear, just because it takes a lot of work. And I don't, if you think of meditation like work, you're guaranteed to never want to do it, you know what I mean? But it's really not. You should think of it more as a break, a break in the day. If you're constantly doing work, you would want to meditate because, you're kind of just relaxing. So to sort of get into that state, I would say that's probably the best way other than binaural beats.
Nice.
You can pretty much force your brain to do that, with a binaural beat.
No, and that's what's so great is you'll ask people, okay, what exactly are you looking to do?
Right.
And you'll create the custom ones,
I know
which
we've
is
talked about it
so
a
cool.
little bit, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the meditation thing is a common theme. I swear every guest I've had so far has talked about meditation, every single one, and every time I'm like, I tried it, and then I fell off. And for me, the guided one, Headspace, is an amazing one.
Yeah, I
love it.
Headspace. Absolutely.
But it's so funny. It was and Andy, I love his accent's amazing,
totally.
And it's just such a perfect one for me. So I did I bought the annual membership, and we were doing 10 minutes every morning. And I'm like, if I can't do 10 minutes, I've got bigger problems.
Yeah, right.
Then I think after the first 10 days, he goes, okay, now we're going to 15 minutes. I was like, whoa, Andy, what are you doing to me? I'm like, I'm still trying to get used to 10 minutes. Yeah. So just funny. I mean, I know you can go in and you can adjust it.
And do whatever you want.
Yeah, you could do 10 or whatever. So it's just funny. Yeah. So that's my question to you. Is 2 questions. How often do you meditate? Every single day?
Every single day without fail.
Wow.
It is, for sure.
How long?
It depends. So I know, like Ty Lopez, he says he reads a book a day, at least. He's not reading every single word of every single book, and I wouldn't say I'm meditating for, 20, 30 minutes every single day, whether it's 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever I get in. And I think we might think of meditation differently. Have you ever read The Power of Now?
Yes.
Phenomenal book. Really, really good. And it will, if you haven't read that, definitely check that out. It will change your perspective on meditating. It's really just becoming more mindful and present rather than, sitting in a dark room and lighting a candle and, in the corner, cross legs. That's not what it needs to be, by any means. So, you can meditate on the drive home. You can meditate while you're washing the dishes. You can meditate, while you're getting dressed. It's just doing whatever it is that you're doing in the day. doing it full-heartedly.
And mindful. Being
totally there.
That's
Yeah,
mindfulness,
totally
actually.
Present. Right, exactly.
So what's the difference? So it's just, are you using it synonymous with meditating and mindfulness, or you're still?
Absolutely. If you're mindful, you're meditating. If you're totally present and within yourself, you're meditating. That is meditation.
Okay.
So
no, because
you can do it.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Years ago, I took a mindfulness class. This is like 2000, so 10 years ago, and they made us stare at a leaf. I'm not.
Yeah,
I wish I was making this up. It was for, I think, 45 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. 45 minutes of staring at one leaf. All the little lines, all the color. I thought I was going to go insane. I was like, especially me, because I'm so like hyperactive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to rip my hair out. But it was that was probably the most like life-changing experiences for me. Something that basic to teach me how to just slow down. No, I know, right? Yeah. And just for the rest of my life now, I'm like, okay, I need to be mindful of just everything, just be in the moment.
Absolutely.
Not being 10 steps ahead, if you're washing the dishes,
totally.
Feel the water, smell the soap.
Exactly.
Like you're actually being mindful of washing the dishes, not like, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow?
Or where am I going to put them after they're dry? Or
you're always trying to be like 5 steps ahead of what you're currently doing, and you're never in the moment.
Yeah, or you're thinking about what happened yesterday or 2 years ago, or the most embarrassing thing in your childhood, or whatever it is.
Yeah. So no, the mindfulness is awesome and huge, but the meditation, okay, that's impressive. No, everybody I talk to, they bring it up. So
yes, yeah, meditation is one of those things that's like stretching. It's not about how long you do it for. I mean, necessarily, we're speaking, generally here. It's not about how long you do it for. It's about frequency. So if you do it, 5 minutes a day is better than doing it an hour a week. You know what I mean? So definitely keep on it,
And how long have you been doing that for, daily meditation?
I've been really focused on it for, I'd say, at least 6 months now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I've definitely seen, personally with myself, I've seen an increase in focus and concentration. So. Yeah.
Nice. So those are good benefits.
Definitely, yeah.
And then do you notice like less, maybe better problem solving, better, like if you were going to get angry at a situation, do you take a moment to think it out first? Because I've heard that as a big benefit.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily. I mean, I'm still a human for sure. I have my moments like everybody. But I will say the one thing that it has helped me with is that I'm much faster to sort of take a step back and be like, okay, hold on, I don't need to be angry right now. The guy cut me off. It's no big deal. I'm still going to get there within 30 seconds of my original time. So it's allowed me to take a step back and reevaluate from a global perspective much faster than I usually would have. So
nice.
So definitely. So I would say that's a huge improvement, for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then, so books. So you're a reader. So do you have a favorite book?
I do. You know what? I brought it.
Oh, nice.
This is, I gotta say, this is my...
Body Language. I've never heard of this book.
Oh, yeah. The definitive book of body language. I love this book. And I gotta tell you, when I was 17 years old, this is the first book I've ever read in my whole life.
Oh my gosh.
And don't tell my mom that. She would be upset. But
she would be upset? Because you didn't read before that?
Never, yeah. So this is this is the first book I ever read. I didn't do so hot in the first couple years in school, but this was the first book I ever read cover to cover. And the instant I finished it, I opened up the first page and started reading it again. I loved it so much. And I'm reading it right now. And another cool thing that I always do is I always use a huge bill as a bookmark. Yeah, totally. Yeah, so just to attract more money and just be constantly handling it and things like that. So that has helped me out, actually.
I've heard that tip before, and I've tried it too, actually. Because just the value you gain from reading the book and getting that knowledge always translates into a monetary amount.
Exactly, yeah. And, the more you learn, the more you earn, right?
Yeah, so, for sure.
Yeah, and just handling it and looking at it constantly draws the picture in your mind of the correlation, between the money and the book that you're reading, and it's sort of, especially if it's a book that you're not really into, but it's good for you, it's got a lot of info in there that you need, you know what I mean? And you want to get through it, it's just kind of tough. Like if you have a $100 bill, I try to keep 100, but I'm running out of money.
Oh, no, 50's good.
Yeah, there right. You go. If you keep that in there, it'll sort of prompt you to keep doing it. Like, all right, I know it's worth money. It's worth money. Me getting this information in my head.
What were some of the like key takeaways from that book, Body Language, that you?
This sort of opened my eyes to this world of reading people. Which is one of my favorite things to do. Often when me and my girlfriend are out on a date, we'll sit there instead of talk to each other. We'll analyze other people.
Oh, yes.
In the room. We'll play that game. I think a lot of people play.
See, especially when they're on a first date, those are the best.
Totally.
Oh, those
absolutely.
are so fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So takeaways from this book. I mean, this is really comprehensive. The biggest takeaway I would say is noticing how I hold myself. So not unintentionally giving out the wrong message. If I know I portray whatever I want to portray instead of how I actually feel. So if I want to portray confidence, instead of crossing my shoulders and do this, I'll intentionally put my chest out. I'll intentionally be more open and receptive.
Oh, nice.
You know
That's
what I mean?
a good one.
Yeah, so that's really helped me out.
Especially walking into a room. It's way more powerful.
Definitely. Or meeting somebody, open shoulders, open palm. I mean, there's like a whole chapter on handshakes, a whole chapter on smiles. It's really, really comprehensive.
I've never heard of that book.
Definitely
that's awesome.
pick it up. Yeah, that's
okay,
a
cool.
really good
That's
one.
next.
Yeah,
That's
and it's
on my
funny
list.
too, so it's good.
And it seems like that's probably the physical one's probably better than the audio.
I would say, than the audiobook. I actually like a mix. And if I can, I'll actually get an audiobook and the real book, and I'll listen to it and read along at the same time.
Well, they say the retention is higher. It's like proven that you retain more when you do it that way.
Yeah,
and you can get through it a little quicker.
And definitely, I try to avoid Kindle. I used to read a lot on the Kindle or on my iPad, and I try not to anymore, just because you actually retain less information when you read it on a screen versus when you read it on a page.
Really?
Yeah. So
I haven't heard that one.
So I like to keep physical books. Plus, I like to keep like my library of books.
No,
you know
me
what
too.
I mean? To go back and reference. So
yeah, when all the bookstores were closing down, I'm like, no.
Right.
I felt like an ancient person where I'm like, I don't want to go digital.
Yeah, totally.
Just because I love the physical.
Absolutely. Yeah, same here.
Touch of having a book.
Yeah.
So what would be? Well, first I want to actually share your story. I know that you had 10 years of insomnia issues with.
Oh man, more than that.
So, was more than that?
More than that for sure. Since I was a little kid, for sure. I never slept, or I never slept well, at least. I'd go multiple days on end with no sleep whatsoever. My longest is about 7 days or so with no sleep. And
isn't it 10? Is it 10 that a person?
The record? I heard the record was 11.
They say you would die if there's a certain amount. Is that true?
It's totally true.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's 10 days.
I think, it's
that
somewhere.
Your body
right,
just shuts off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's somewhere right around there.
Gosh.
Yeah. It's not fun. I'll tell you that. It's definitely torture. So I'd go. My usual was more like 2, 3, 4 days. I would just sort of stare at the ceiling. I lived off of infomercials at 2 a.m. It's the only thing that's on. I know everything that Billy Mays has ever sold.
Tony Robbins.
Yeah, exactly.
Seen that a bunch.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was not a fun time in my life. When I was younger, I started to drink a little bit. I say a little bit, but way too much. Definitely an unhealthy amount. And that was sort of compounding the negativity that I was going through at the time. I finally got on some sleeping pills when I was about 16, and they did the trick. They knocked me out, and I was really depressed at the time. I had really, really bad depression. I was always down. Every day was, just varying degrees of sadness. There was never really like happy, ecstatic days. It was just either sad or really sad. So. Which is like awful to talk about now. It's so not me anymore.
No, I would never guess it of you. Just because you're always positive, always in a good mood.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's how humans were really made to live,
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't feel that all the time, there's something going on with you, that you should address. And most people don't like to address it because they're comfortable. They're stuck where they are and they're good with that. They're totally fine. So anyways, I got on these sleeping pills and I figured, as soon as I get on these sleeping pills and I get some sleep, this depression will go away, right? All I need was some sleep. I'll feel better. And it didn't. The opposite happened. It got worse. It was compounding more on that. I was drinking even more, with the sleeping pills. It was really bad. It was a rough time. So many years passed. I became a massage therapist when I was 19, and that helped me out a lot. That was a huge turning point for me because up until that point, I hated every single thing about school. I hated everything that had to do with it. It was really rough for me, and not in the sense that it was difficult. It was just difficult to want to do anything, you know. It was hard enough getting out of bed, you know, when I hadn't slept the whole night and I knew I had a full day ahead of me. So I disliked it very much. It was really difficult. And when I found massage school, it was amazing because I loved it. I loved everything about it. Even the anatomy and physiology classes that were like lecture classes, you know, because it pertained exactly to what we were doing, you know, in the hands-on class, which is what I loved the most. You know, the hands-on was really, really important for me. And I didn't realize it before then, but it turns out that that's just all I needed. I needed something to do with my hands. I needed hands-on work for me to learn and take information better, you know. So that was huge. It didn't cure me by any means, you know, the sleeping ailments that I had. I've been on sleeping pills for a really long time, and sleeping pills are not good long term because you're not really sleeping. They really just kind of put you out, you know. They don't put you to sleep. I mean, of course, you're unconscious, you know, but you're not getting deep sleep like you should be, or it's not at least regular like it should be. So basically, I did this for a couple years. You know, I was on these sleeping pills for, you know, 7 years or so, and my mom had heard about the Brain Treatment Center, and she, you know, asked me if I wanted to get brain treatment. And I said, that sounds fun, you know. So,
nice.
Yeah, so I came out to California to Newport Beach at the headquarters and got treatment there. And in about 3 or 4 weeks, that was the first time in my whole life I'd been waning off of my sleeping pill since I got treatment, you know, since I started. And about 3 or 4 weeks in was the first time in my whole life I slept through the entire night with no pills, drugs, or alcohol of any kind. So it was totally life-changing, real game changer for me.
That
definitely.
is awesome.
Yeah.
See, I love that story only because we have so many clients. I have so
Yeah.
many really great friends of mine that have
very
major insomnia,
Yeah.
sleep issues. Like my heart hurts for them. I'm so lucky because I get to sleep.
Yeah.
But, like I have no problem sleeping and falling asleep and staying asleep. And so, but I don't take it for granted because I know how important
Absolutely.
for good health. I mean, sleep's on the top of the list.
Absolutely, yeah. Your circadian rhythm, which is your sleep-wake cycle, is so important for your health in general. I mean, if you could never be peak physical health or mental, for that matter, if you don't have a regulated circadian rhythm. There's just no way, you know. No matter how healthy you eat, you know, or clean or whatever, it'll never be as good as it could be until your sleep is regulated. So
yeah,
yeah.
So good. So that leads to my next question:
Yeah.
what's your number one health happiness hack? I know that you have one thing you demonstrated before, which is amazing.
Yeah, do you want to go over that at the end, and then we'll?
Yeah. So let's get your hack first.
Yeah.
Again, we like tangible things that you guys can try on your own as soon as possible. Something you could take out of this episode. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when I got to the Brain Treatment Center, one of the things that you know, at the time they were preaching to me about, and now I preach about it because I work there, is brain health, and along with that is regulating circadian rhythm. So what you do basically, you know, as far as civilization is concerned, electricity is a fairly new thing, right? So before then we were outside with the sun, and we went inside when it got dark out. And as soon as electricity was invented and we had light bulbs in the house, we could be inside or outside anytime, you know, we wanted to. So basically, our brain over time has adapted to use the sunlight in the morning to essentially start the circadian rhythm. So this is a tangible thing that you can do, you know, at home, and should be part of a routine, you know, which is something that you really need to work on. It's a lifestyle change that is, you know, could be some work, but fitting this into your daily routine is really, really important. So by going outside in the morning and getting at least 45 minutes, ideally an hour of sunlight, unobstructed in the morning before 11 a.m. is the fastest way I've ever seen you're essentially rebooting the circadian rhythm. So what that tells your brain is from 10 to 12 hours or so from the time you get about an hour of sunlight in the morning, 10, 12 hours later, that tells your brain to dump melatonin. So when you think of hormones in the body, you think of sort of the floodgates opening, you know. Melatonin's a little bit different in that it takes a really long time. It takes the entire day just to produce enough to spike at night to make you sleepy. You know, not even, you know, knock you out or anything. So getting this blue light in the morning will tell your brain, okay, it's morning. At night, this is when I'm going to be tired and go to sleep. And respect that. You'll feel a, you know, initial wave of tiredness. You'll feel like the first yawn of the night that, you know, myself included and most people fight through and watch one more episode of Netflix or keep reading or whatever it is, you know. But the moment you feel that first initial wave of being tired, hit the sheets immediately, you know, and you'll sleep and you'll notice a difference, you know, the next day when you wake up. It's not just hours, because you can sleep 12 hours and wake up and still not feel great. That just means that the quality is not good. So this will improve quality and, you know, help you sleep better.
And you said an hour of sunlight in the morning?
Yeah, ideally an hour.
And no sunglasses or something?
Yeah, so there's stipulations. So no glasses, no contacts, no sunglasses, not through a car windshield. Basically, like a rule of thumb would be if there's a piece of glass between your eyes and the atmosphere, whatever sun you're getting is kind of null and void, because most glass has some type of a filter that will block the specific wavelength of light that we're looking for. And just for your record, if you wanted, the wavelength is 450 to 500 nanometers. And the reason this is important, I'll tell you. So we actually used to have this giant box light. It was like $500-600 at our house that produces the same wavelength of light that we're looking for in the morning. So I know in Detroit, you know, in Michigan, it's really cold in the winter. So we're not going outside, you know, in the rain or the snow in the wintertime. So this would simulate the light from the sun. So it turns out aquarium supply stores actually sell these strip LED bars that have the same wavelength. They emit the same wavelength of light, and they're like $150 or whatever. So,
no, I love
so
that.
way cheaper. Yeah. So now I have one of those instead.
Yeah, I'm giving that hack to like a lot of people already.
Oh,
Because they were going to go
absolutely.
get a light box on Amazon for like $500.
Totally.
I'm like, no. Sean said you have to get it at an aquarium store. And they're like, what? I'm like, I'm telling you, it's got to be this one.
You might be able
Say
to
the
buy 'em on
one.
Amazon,
What is
too.
it again that they need? Which
It's
one?
450 to 500 nanometers.
Okay.
So that'll be like within the product description or whatever it is, you know.
Cool.
And the reason aquarium supply stores have that is because, you know, their fish life and plant life specifically, they grow in a specific depth of water, and the water will bend and refract the light into different wavelengths. And so if you have, you know, depending on your tank, I don't know that much about it, but depending on the type of tank you have and the stuff you want to grow and live in the tank, you need a very specific wavelength of light to go into the tank. So that's why they're regulated, and they, you know exactly what wavelength it is. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. And then you want to end with the exercise
Yeah,
for
definitely.
our viewers?
So, okay, do this with me, all right?
Okay, well,
So,
did it once before. I loved it.
yeah,
so.
it's great. So, so what you're going to do, I'll explain. You guys follow along here. So, with all 5 fingers together, straight spine, nice and relaxed. Close your eyes, take a deep breath or two. Now, you're just going to take a deep breath with all 5 fingers together, just face down on your lap like this. Take a deep breath. Just notice what part of your body the air occupies. Just notice where the air goes into your body. And so when I say switch, what you're going to do is take your hands from this position to this position. Just on your lap like that. So
Just
deep,
face them up. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. So deep breath. And switch. So then you're going to switch to palms up. And notice where the air goes in your body. So what's interesting, you'll notice, so when your hands are face up, the air will actually stop right at the solar plexus, right here. And when your hands are face down, it will go all the way into the stomach. You know, the diaphragm's fully engaged. You know, so did you feel this?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then do you need to have your hand? They could just be on your lap?
Yeah,
Okay.
just hanging out on your lap. Yeah, nice and relaxed.
And then what's causing that? That's crazy.
You know, honestly, I really couldn't tell you. I don't know that much about it. But I do know that, you know, how many times a day we do this, and, you know, we don't even realize, you know, that we're doing this. So, you know, this just goes to show that this is a perfectly designed machine, you know, this body that we occupy. And most of us are using it as pleasure-seeking devices, right? Eating, you know, fudge brownies, and I'm just going off on what things I like, you know. But
yeah.
yeah, things like that, when really, if you really get in tune with what you can do and what you're capable of, it will astound you.
So essential. Well, and then that's probably with meditation pose too. A lot of people do.
Yeah, and
the palms up.
Yeah, and there's probably some other things that I'm not quite hitting on, but you know how the classic going like this, while you meditate, it's something that you can train yourself. So basically, if you are in NLP, we call this anchors. So you can set this as an anchor, or this as an anchor, or holding your wrist as an anchor. So basically, you feel a certain way. So let's say, before you're going to get on stage to present something or in front of the class, you imagine that there is just this confidence pouring out of you, right? Just imagine it. It's all over the floor. You pick it up imaginarily, right? You scoop it up off the ground, slap it onto your wrist. So do this several times until you have this emotion locked into this body part, or doing this action. So every time after that you want to access that emotion, immediately you do this, or you do this, or you do this.
Is that called tapping too, also?
Tapping is a little bit different. EFT, the emotional
EFT,
freedom technique. That's hitting points along the nervous system. It's a little bit different. This is anchoring a specific emotion to a specific part or action.
Okay.
So by doing this, if you do this every single time you meditate, and you've been meditating for a long time, all you have to do to start meditating is just do this, because it will immediately put you into that mode. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does.
Right. Yeah.
So it triggers the brain to think, okay,
yeah, exactly.
Time to meditate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then what about the top of the breath exercise one?
Yeah, the still point. I love
still
this.
Point.
This is
still point. I didn't know how to name official name.
Yeah. So this is something I learned off of a SoundCloud interview. Really obscure. I've never heard of this guy before, but I listened to it, and I've recently tried to find it again, and it was deleted. So luckily, I memorized it before it got deleted. So what you're going to do is same position. You're just going to be straight spine, eyes closed, nice and relaxed. Take a deep breath in. Don't worry, we're not doing anything with the hands right now. So deep breath in. On the next deep breath, what I want you to do is get to the top of the breath. Just notice that there's a top. Notice the peak of the breath. And continue breathing. Don't hold your breath. Now, on the next breath, what you're going to do is get to the top of the breath. Pause. Just pause. Don't hold your breath. Just pause. Notice the peak, and then continue breathing. And on the next one, what you're going to do, you're going to get to the top of the breath and leave your mind at the top of the breath and let your body continue to breathe like it does when you're sleeping. So this technique is called still point.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
that's like
really
my
cool.
favorite one.
So I love this. I do this all day.
Yeah.
So if you ask, like a Tibetan monk how they live, they say that they live in the space between the breath. Now it sounds really like complicated and kooky, but it's really simple to get there, because if you do that exercise right there, that will put you in it. It's a very, very subtle focal shift. And there's a check that you can do to see if you did it correctly. So you may feel some tingles in your arms or legs or something like that. But the real check way to see if you did it correctly is that if you try and hold on to any emotion whatsoever, it's completely impossible. You can't do it while you're in this state, while you're in this still point. So this is sort of a place that you can hang out in, which is really cool, because you can access this at any moment. So if you access still point and you try and feel angry or upset, you can't. There's nothing there. And same with happy, which seems counterintuitive. You'd think you want to be happy all the time. And you do, for sure, but it's actually even difficult to hold on to a positive emotion, because there's just nothing. There's nothing for the emotion to hold on to. You're totally present. So it's total, serene, peaceful, and still.
That's awesome. And I know we went a little long on this episode, but Sean, I knew it, because I'm like, he has so much information. I'm like, either we're going to need to do 2 separate episodes or go a little bit long on one. And so, but it was well worth it. And how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way for them?
Throw my email on there. Yeah,
okay.
Definitely. Facebook, email.
Do you want to say your
signals.
email?
My email is sean.bartlett64. So that's SEAN sean.bartlett64@gmail.
Nice, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
No, it was fun. I knew it. I'm like, oh, he has so much knowledge. Like, how are we going to narrow it down? And definitely for everybody out there to subscribe is very helpful so you don't miss an episode. We launch every single Wednesday. It's like our Wellness Wednesday theme, a new episode. And thank you again, Sean.
Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Thanks.